Hello and welcome to Uncanny Book Club. I'm Isaac Faderspiel, and joining me as always is my co-host, Adam Ward.
Yo, I have a very important update for our audience and for you.
You watched the Dark Phoenix movie?
I tried to watch it.
Did you actually?
I did actually, yes.
Just like a slow weekend, not much going on.
Yeah, something like that. I
Killed
had
by
some
boredom.
I had some extra time, and when we last spoke, you flagged how great X-Men 97 was, and I went and watched it like pretty much over the course of like 3 days, and it was great. And I was still feeling.
Put you in a bit of an X-Men mood.
Yeah, it made me want to like, oh, there it is, right there. There's Dark Phoenix. I can watch it, and I tried, and it was terrible.
Boy, howdy.
Boy, oh boy, is it just this thing that they just seem to not be able to nail. No matter what they do, it just seems to always be incredibly subpar.
You know, but at least they did go to space. That's something.
Yeah, at least Scott didn't die off camera, you know?
Ooh, boy.
It's
Yeah.
You know who is in that movie, by the way? Because we've come across this because Callisto.
I think we talked about it,
Yes,
right?
Callisto was a character in that film looking nothing even remotely close to what her comic counterpart looks like. But
And her powers are Vegeta's scouter for power levels.
yeah, another traditional X-Men character that is not in our series that we're reading. He comes much later, but Glob Henderson. I think that's his last name, right?
Is Glob in final? What?
Yeah, he's in it.
Glob Herman, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Glob Herman. Thank you. But yeah, he's in it and looks absolutely terrible.
Oh, boy. So Wolverine, huh?
Yeah, let's talk about Wolverine because this mini was a lot of things. And I think for the most part, very, very good.
Agreed.
And
Big fan.
I think off the top, before we even get into it, Chris Claremont wrote this, but we obviously have a different art team behind this book, and that is legendary Frank Miller. And I don't think this is a hot take to say that Frank's art style is both good and bad at the same time. Like one panel will look absolutely amazing, and then the next one, it's very janky.
You got to pick the ones that you want to spend the most time on.
Like the action sequences in here were incredible. Like they're beautifully drawn.
I mean, there's a lot of things that are just like very beautifully drawn. Like at one point he pulls up like the photograph of Mariko.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
It has an insane amount of detail compared to everything else. And then you have like the airplane on like the same. It's kind of like I mean, it looks good, but it's like a rough sketch in comparison.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Some images look really good and other ones don't. And I think that's pretty well accepted.
The stuff that needs to look good looks good. I wasn't distracted by wonky art.
No. Not at all. But I think it's a worthy acknowledgement that, you know, this is a very different art style, and Frank has a brutality to his art that is different than what we're used to seeing. And I think it complements this very well. Like, don't get me wrong. I actually think overall this series is a perfect representation of Logan as a character, as Wolverine, as somebody who has grown to be more than just a killer. And the art style, I think, reflects that very well. It's brutal when it needs to be, and it can be soft at other times, and it can also be incredibly janky.
All right, well, before we get too deep into the art, story summary.
Yeah, hit us with it.
Issue 1 starts in the Canadian Rockies with Wolverine hunting down a rogue grizzly bear that's on a murder spree. He puts it down and finds an illegal barbed arrow point in the animal. He ends up hunting the hunter that's responsible, finding him in a bar, and teaches him a lesson. On his way back to the X-Men, he received a pile of returned, unopened letters that he sent to Mariko in Japan. After calling her home and being hung up on, he decides to check things out in person. His friend Asano Kimura, a local spook and friend Logan has worked with in the past, stops him on his way into Japan. He warns Logan that Mariko is married and that he should leave her alone. Wolverine suits up instead and goes after her. He infiltrates her home and finds her beaten and bruised. Logan means to kill her new husband, but Mariko begs him to stop. He's on his way out when he's hit with several poisoned shurikens. He awakens and is greeted by Mariko's father, Lord Shingen. He feels insulted by Logan's desire for Mariko's hand and throws a wooden sword at him, commenting that he isn't worthy of the real thing. Shingen is winning the duel due to the poison and other tricks, but Logan throws away his sword and draws his claws instead. His attack misses, Shingen's does not. In the duel's final moments, Logan hears, "Behold, daughter, the man you profess to love, except he is no man at all, but an animal cast in a semblance of human form. Gaze upon him, Mariko. Witness his true self. Here is the thing to which you have given your heart. Answer me truthfully. Is he worthy of such a prize?" He hears her say no before losing consciousness. He awakens on the street, threatened by a couple of street thugs, who are then dispatched by a woman who says, "You're mine, Wolverine, now and forever." Issue number 2. Wolverine wakes to an assassination attempt by the Hand. The mysterious woman from the previous issue identifies herself as Yukio, and the two eliminate their would-be assassins. The two escape to Logan's hotel, and Yukio says that the Hand were after her because of a crime lord that she crossed. The two almost get physical, but Mariko's face echoes in Logan's mind and he walks off. Yukio is not super thrilled about that. In an interlude, we see that Yukio is actually working for Shingen. He wishes her to kill the crime lord Katsuyori and Wolverine. Yukio and Wolverine infiltrate Katsuyori's base, and he's shocked to see Mariko and her husband, who are there as Shingen's representatives. They're watching a play, but one of the performers attempts to assassinate Mariko, and Logan leaps into action. He fights the rest of the troupe, and Yukio sets off a bomb in Katsuyori's car when he means to escape. An assassin delivers what would be a fatal blow to a normal human to Wolverine, driving him into a berserker's rage. In minutes, the battle is over, but Mariko is shocked by his brutality. The issue ends with Yukio saying to herself, "Logan-san, my beloved Wolverine, gotcha."
She's certainly thirsty for Wolverine.
She really, really is. Well, like we said the other week, when you know. Scott and Madeline, they knew. Yukio, she knows with Wolverine just like instantly.
Although Logan is saying, I don't know. I love Mariko, and this is a lot. There's a lot happening.
He kind of falls in love with both of them very quickly.
I do not think he falls in love with Yukio at all.
Well, he kind of says he does, but I think it's fair to question that. Wolverine so far seems very quick to throw out the L word.
Yeah. He's got his heart on his sleeve, for somebody who is so tough and really puts up that persona. He's really a sensitive guy, I find. At least when it comes to the people he loves.
Mm.
And if you're lucky, he might say it to you. He might even say it to you on the day you meet.
I feel like that's the case for most people.
I think a good place to jump in here is this opening sequence of the book is very familiar for anybody who's seen the movie The Wolverine. This is essentially exactly what happens in that film. They took it directly from this, obviously, which was a direct inspiration for that film. And I've already spoken on our podcast about how I really, really love that movie. And I think it does Logan a lot of good.
Maybe I'll try to go back and watch that. Maybe not this week, and maybe not next week, but one of these weeks for sure.
It can be your Dark Phoenix. Only when you do watch it, you won't be disappointed. Not that I was disappointed.
Not like it doesn't feel very equivalent. It sounded like you were pretty disappointed in Dark Phoenix.
It was exactly what I thought it was going to be bad.
That's true. You can't suffer disappointment if you're already expecting it to be that bad.
Yeah, I can't be disappointed in something that I was never hopeful was going to be good to begin with. And
that old
was,
loophole.
Yeah, that old loophole. But yeah, that opening sequence with the bear is exactly what happens in the film. And that jumped out at me immediately. Him going to confront the hunter using that barbed, poison-tipped arrow that like killed a bunch of people too. Like the bear went crazy.
The bear killed a lot of people. 7 men, 3 women, 5 kids paid the price.
That is a
For
crazy
his
amount of people.
stupidity, he as much as murdered them. Grizzlies.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're not even remotely close to bear country. I don't think.
I got a zoo.
A zoo. Oh, well. You can go.
They have the bear garden. It is a little stand that sells beer.
Well, I do not live anywhere near the Rocky Mountains. It's on the other side of the country. But you do learn about these animals here because bears are, found pretty much across the country, but not grizzlies. Those are mostly just out west or up north, like way up in the Arctic or near the Arctic, but not in the Arctic because that's where the polar bears are. You also don't want to mess with them. Black bears, though, whew, that's different.
Pretty sure polar bears are chill. They're usually just drinking Coca-Cola and making commercials.
I don't know, man. I've watched Survivor, man. I know it. You got to go up there with a gun because they get hungry. They'll eat anything, including Coca-Cola, probably. Not a sponsor.
But it is better than Pepsi.
With this story, I don't think they will ever be. They're you know what? Now that you mentioned the polar bear and Coca-Cola, I'm just thinking about how 2 big can-friendly characters that Coca-Cola has relied on are a polar bear found in the Arctic and Santa, also found in the North Pole.
Do you think that Coca-Cola is maybe made by Santa's elves?
Could be.
We'll have to explore this another time.
Yeah, that's a different podcast.
Unhinged conspiracy theories just come every week with a new crazy thought.
Yeah, it's some internet salad. You just spewing off things you see online.
So this felt like a much different Wolverine than I think we've typically seen when he's working with the X-Men. And I think even compared to when he's fighting the Brood, I mean, there's a good amount of killing over these 4 issues, but it's not like that he's just in like a rage or like a brutality thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, I guess, what I would call like him being extremely competent.
Yes. And I think that's like overall, that's a huge thread through all 4 issues, right? This comparison of, as we see, especially in this first one, this confrontation with Shingen, and, he calls Logan an animal, a beast. He's, unhinged and ravaged. And, by the end of this, there's this revelation to Logan that he's not that. He's a man. He's, he could show restraint if he wants, but he's not killing out of a brutality, and he's not killing out of pleasure. He's basically on a revenge tour akin to John Wick, only instead of killing a dog,
he wanted to marry someone.
Yeah, he's doing it for love. Including killing his love's father,
who kind of has it coming though.
Yeah, he's not a good guy, and there was a lot unanswered too. We don't really know a lot about Shingen beyond that he was presumed dead,
missing.
and missing, and things seem to have been fine in the Tokyo, Japan underworld, and suddenly he returns and owes this guy a favor, so he marries Mariko off to him. And even that's not really explained, what favor existed that required you to essentially sell off your child to, make good on a deal. And maybe these things are explored in a different series. I found, at least for me reading this, there was a lot of, wow, I wish I could know more about this. Not just the Shingen situation, but even Logan talking about his past as a secret agent assassin. It comes up a lot, and we see this relationship that he has with
Asano.
Asano and how they used to do missions together. And it really just had me being like, I would love a X-Men Logan book, and maybe not an X-Men book, but a Wolverine book during his time as a special agent, in that kind of setting, right? Where he's going out and doing these missions. What does that look like? And I guess like some of this gets answered later on, as there is a book that comes out in the 90s that is like called Weapon X or Wolverine Weapon X or something along those lines that basically explores, Logan's transformation into the Wolverine. So, but I don't think it gets into the mission-oriented thinking that I'm at, where I want to see him as a secret agent working for the government and not being, what I assume is a very tiny view of Logan's time there, right? Because, I mean, when we meet him, he's like an active agent with the Canadian government, right? That gets recruited by Xavier. And, we've seen a bit of his interactions with Alpha Flight and that pre-existing relationship. And we've explored that he's been on missions and Carol Danvers, and that's how they know each other. It just feels like there's a treasure trove of potential storytelling opportunities where you could go back through Logan's past without getting too deep into like the Weapon X element of it all.
I feel like there probably is though, huh? Maybe somewhere. It's got to be by now.
I don't know. And
if you know, write us and let us know.
Yeah, let us know, because I would love to read it if it was like that was the focus. I'm not talking about specifically him being created by Weapon X, but him being the secret agent that constantly gets brought up. That's what I want to read.
I did my own Googling around in response to these issues, and I discovered something very interesting, maybe even a little shocking.
Oh, I like shocking.
So I had this as a note for later, but it doesn't really make any difference. Wolverine 1, this first issue, and the Uncanny X-Men issue that continues this story came out 1 year apart.
Really?
Yes. So this story was continued 1 year later, essentially. So like what we just recently did, like there's a physical year between when Wolverine 1 was released and when X-Men number whatever was released. Like, to put it in perspective, Wolverine 1 came out the same week as that issue where Xavier and Magneto fought the Nazis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so before the main Brood story completely.
I'm I am genuinely shocked. Well done. I would not have guessed that, because
It must have been so weird to read that and be like, at some point he's going to go to Japan and there's going to be a wedding.
It's, you know what, like, I think I've mentioned I've been using Hoopla, not a sponsor. Great service, though, and highly recommend seeing if your library offers it.
Support your local library.
And so I've been reading the Masterworks collections, and the way that this has been collected in here does not reflect how it was obviously released. So this volume has the Wolverine mini that then directly goes into those issues where we pick it up in Uncanny X-Men with the wedding in Japan. So it is much more of a seamless read.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, I think my shock that there was that big of a gap between then and where we kind of were reading.
I mean, it's a long gap.
Yeah, man. Well, that's common in comics, right? If you read Saga, we're waiting all the time.
I think a lot of focus is put on Frank Miller's art. You even remarked an episode or two ago, or whenever it was, of recognizing like the classic Wolverine come here finger cover as being like a Frank Miller piece. And to be clear, and we've already talked about this, like there's a lot of very, very good in here. But for me, like I thought the colorist was absolutely killing it. A lot of the art is in my opinion, really enhanced by a lot of the color choices or like shading choices with the different colors. Things that are just blocked out by solid color versus being like detailed.
Yep.
It creates really dynamic panels.
And that is Glynis Ween is the colorist in these issues. It's a really sharp issue. All of them really, albeit, as I said, some of it is a bit janky, but I think it's enough to look past. And I mean, like, it's not, these issues aren't a unicorn. We've seen this as a common thread through a lot of the issues that we've read, where at times it can appear as though it's a little wonk. And that's okay.
For sure.
These are all hand-drawn panels. I respect it.
The 70s and 80s were a different time.
Absolutely. I gotta mention
people
this.
Looked wonkier back then.
I'm staring at this panel right now. Speaking of wonky, when Logan is meeting Shingen for the first time after being drugged with those throwing stars, and Shingen's up there on his like altar, and there's just like the two topless sumo guys just standing there
menacingly.
You couldn't just put them in a suit or any kind of outfit.
That's their uniform. They're sumo guys. Maybe they were competing. You know,
this is like his their home. Legs are
He's
humongous. Oh my God.
Well, they gotta be. They're sumo. All the power comes from the legs.
Big part of these issues, especially compared to the X-Men, because I think that's like the best comparison for us, obviously, here. You know, you mentioned how different Logan is in this series compared to how we've kind of seen him throughout the X-Men. And I think that's a good thing, right? Like, we're really diving into who Wolverine is, what's driving him. And like, yeah, we've touched on this a lot, but, you know, X-Men is an ensemble cast, and you're not really devoting a lot of internal monologuing to, you know, one specific character. And it is a balance, right? But they did a really great job flushing out Logan. And, you know, when we talk like, we're joking about Logan throwing the L word around very, very easily, but, you know, like, that's something that isn't really being explored in that main X-Men comic, right? I think we know that he has this relationship with Mariko. We know that they have a loving relationship, as we've seen, but to have him kind of go to Japan, and we get to see him speaking fluent Japanese. He has this previous history from here with, you know, beyond just Mariko. And I think what they did exceptionally well here is that this book is just incredibly grounded compared to what we often see in the X-Men, right? Which is this...
They don't go to outer space.
This big, very sci-fi, fantasy-based kind of look at the world. You know, yeah, we're going to go into outer space and fight aliens. And, you know, we've seen Logan really shine in some moments, especially, you know, through the Brood Saga. And we've really complimented that kind of character development. And in here, you know, we have all these scenes with like crime lords and backstabbing and skullduggery and intrigue and underhandedness. And, you know, these are all things that are happening. And it's such a different setting compared to what we're used to seeing with the X-Men.
The most fantastical thing that happens outside of Wolverine's powers is that the hand assassins disintegrate after they're killed.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, so does a regular person. Just a little slower.
Yeah.
So not even that fantastical.
It'll happen. I have to imagine that the hand at this point in time is connected to Daredevil, but I'm not entirely sure.
I would think so.
Needless to say, I really appreciated just the groundedness of these to just really make it stand out compared to how we typically see Logan. And I think that's also where that brutality comes from, right? When we think of the X-Men, because it's ensemble, I think it's a different target audience anyways, but this allows them to kind of cut loose a little bit and really lean into Logan being this ferocious fighter and a competent fighter, thinking about what he's going to be doing next. And We see that from the hunting the bear down to hunting down the hunter who poisoned the bear to then, trying to navigate the challenges of being in Japan and this, there's this cultural difference as well that's at play here, right? Mariko feels honor bound to her family and to her father and, doesn't really agree with what's happening in terms of her being, wedded off against her will to somebody else. She just accepts it because that is the cultural norm. And it's very different compared to like how a lot of Western civilization works. And to kind of like see them play that as like such a major theme, and Logan really not understanding the nuanced difference of like, you can just go get divorced. You don't have to do this. You're getting beaten. This guy is going to probably kill you one day. Your father's a scumbag. Like, let's just go. But, that mentality that exists and that's culturally bound really complicates it and adds like this added depth and layer to like what's happening in this story because, Logan is constantly trying to not be what he's being accused of as this brutal animal that's just, rampaging around. So I felt like it was a nice story thread for them to weave in here because it does stand out compared to what we're used to in the West.
Issue 3 begins with a boozed-up Wolverine blowing off some steam by competing against a sumo wrestler, with Yukio looking on. He throws him out a window and is greeted by his friend Asano of Japan's Secret Service. Asano warns Logan that someone has taken over Japan's criminal underworld and begs for his help. Logan blows him off. Logan and Yukio continue their walk into the night and get a little kissy-kissy on the train tracks. At the last second, Logan notices the bullet train careening toward them. Logan asks if she's crazy and wants to die, to which Yukio says, "Does it matter? I will eventually. So will you. But until then, I want to live every moment to the fullest. And when I die, I wish to die spectacularly. Whether you admit it or not, my love, you are the same." Logan is asleep from the drink before she's done speaking. He dreams of his situation in the form of an analogy, a lone warrior riding west for the hand of the woman he loves. He believes he is worthy, but falls to a storm of arrows. The dream Mariko says, "Worthy of me, you are not even worthy of life," and delivers the killing shot. While Logan sleeps, the hand have come for Yukio. Shingen is displeased that Logan has not been killed. Out of respect, she's given one last chance, but she turns on the assassins instead. She attempts to wake Logan, but he says Mariko's name and she kicks him in the face. Back in the hotel, she believes an assassin is coming through the door and she awaits with one of her knives. We cut to Logan's perspective and see him discover Asano's body dead from Yukio's knife wound. He gets a whiff of the blade and realizes it is the same toxin as what coated the shurikens that poisoned him back in issue number 1. He puts 2 and 2 together and concludes that she's been working for Shingen the whole time, lying and setting him up. He says, "You'd better kill me now, Yukio. You won't get a second chance." She escapes through the window with the sound of a sob and laugh. Logan follows. She leads him to a rooftop Zen garden, crashing through a glass ceiling, but the hand are on him in moments, and after they're eliminated, he realizes that she's gone. He's saddened by the disruption to the Zen garden, which should be a place of beauty, peace, and tranquility. He sees himself in that destruction and questions why bother. Mariko makes him want to change, to grow, and be tempered. Yukio loves him the way he is. He loves them both, but realizes that the key isn't winning or losing, it's making the attempt. He thinks, an animal knows what it is and accepts it. A man may know what he is, but he questions. He dreams. He strives, changes, grows. The issue concludes with, "You took my dreams from me, Shingen, but only for a time, because I'm a man, Shingen, not a beast. A man. That mistake is going to cost you." Issue number 4 begins with Wolverine dismantling Shingen's empire, stopping drug deals, chasing down bad guys, etc. Shingen receives a package with a note saying, "Tonight." Meanwhile, Wolverine assembles a bunch of gear for his continued anti-crime spree. Mariko is struggling with her situation and asks her ancestors for guidance. She wants to obey her father, but is bothered by his ambition, cruelty, and dishonor that he brings to their name. Yukio is captured by the Hand and brought before Shingen. She means to balance the scales of Asano's death by killing him. Shingen unties her and proceeds to beat her down, but is stopped by Mariko and then interrupted when the radio checks in but goes silent. They know Wolverine has arrived. When confronted, Mariko's husband holds a gun to her head to hold off Wolverine, but Yukio's blades strike him from behind, killing him. Yukio kisses Wolverine and leaves. He thinks, I can't forgive her for Asano, and I can never repay her for Mariko, so I let her go. Shingen retrieves his katana, and the two once again begin a duel. It's a ferocious battle between the two, but Logan eventually grabs his collar and releases his claws, killing him. Mariko walks in to see Logan and her father's fate. She picks up his sword. She says that the honor sword of Clan Yashida is meant to be wielded by the samurai who best exemplifies the qualities of the clan. She holds out the blade for him. He says he is unworthy. She says that he has proven that he is what Shingen could never hope to be. The two embrace. We close with the X-Men receiving their wedding invitations.
And what a photo, too. Logan looks so awkward in the traditional Japanese.
Very, very awkward. The other thing I really liked about that last panel with the X-Men, like looking at the invite, and what makes a lot more sense when we remember that there's like a year-long gap, is that I was confused at first of like, why is Scott there? He's not with the X-Men at this point.
So some great storytelling here. We start with the sword fight and we end with a sword fight. And
the way it should be.
And especially because the reflection that Logan comes to, and I already touched on this, but I'm going to bring it up again because I think it's important. Logan going in and having that fight in the beginning against Shingen, and, he gets called that an animal and a beast. And then he has this kind of reflection, right, at the end of issue 3. He's a man. He's a man, baby. Sorry,
he's a real boy.
I always think of Austin Powers anytime I have to be like, it's a man. He, in this case, comes to the conclusion of who he is, and really accepts that he's growing and he wants to be better. And Mariko really is the person who's bringing that out in him. And we then have him best Shingen in that combat, and it is an awesome set of pages, like just incredibly drawn, no words needed really to just drive home this battle that's happening.
Pretty similar to his encounter with the Silver Samurai.
Yes. I'm looking at this page right now where like the katana is lodged in Logan's arm, and you can see like the red is very much accentuating the brutality and the blood, I'm guessing, the ferocity of this fight. And you called out already like how the art team really came out to be creative in how they're displaying this. And, despite some odd panels to me, Frank really did a great job illustrating these fight sequences. And I especially love the katana through Logan's, abdomen, and he thinks the fight's over, but then Logan grabs the katana and pulls him close, and, we just see the snicked, and it's very, very satisfying. And I just think it's, you get to the next page and you just see the red outline of Shingen on the ground. It's just such great visual storytelling.
Even beyond just the visual element of the story, I thought, overall we're looking at a very solid story. And in my opinion, I felt that it flowed a lot better than the Magic Mini.
Yeah.
It seemed more planned out. And, maybe that was just, I mean, like, at first I wondered if that was kind of like part of the overall plan of like, and then we'll continue it with the regular X-Men storyline. But I mean, there was such a long time in between, like those two issues that now I'm like, maybe not.
Yeah, it's definitely more succinct across these 4 issues compared to the Magic Mini. But in fairness,
They had a long time to cover in that.
well, and I think the other important piece of context here is that mini is really the polar opposite of what this is, right? Like I've already remarked about how I felt like this story is very grounded in reality and, beyond Logan being, having his mutant abilities and powers, like we're not really getting into the magic, fantasy sci-fi side of Marvel. Whereas the Magic Mini is almost exclusively that. And they really leaned into the funkiness of what Limbo was meant to represent and these twisted and distorted versions of the Marvel heroes and X-Men heroes that we've come to see. So I think, like the purpose of those two things are very different. And we've also experienced Wolverine for a lot longer. And the Magic Mini was, it was really our look at Ileana, at least like what happens when she disappears. Although, and I do remember us talking about this at the time, it does come out significantly later than kind of, like where we kind of picked it up and read.
I think one of the highlights for me, and when I first read it, it kind of felt longer, but then when I go back to it, it's like, I wish this was actually longer. Like it's kind of short. The brief montage at the start of issue number 4 of Logan dismantling the crime empire.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying. And again, is a great representation of like that visual storytelling where, I mean, for most of them, he's just like very, like he's shadowed out or casting like a large shadow. It's kind of Batman-esque in a way.
Yes.
Very, very fun. Really loved seeing just him methodically taking down Shingen, who, I mean, has become like ultimately like the entirety of the underworld, which is funny because it's kind of like, like what is the drug deal? It's like him selling drugs to himself, basically, since he's the only member of the underworld.
Well, I think in one of the images, I'm kind of just reading into it a bit because, we're not really given a context of who these people are. But there is like the initial sequence we see.
A briefcase full of cocaine?
I think it's heroin.
Oh, it is heroin. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Seems like a lot of heroin.
It just pours out like milk.
Or powdered sugar.
The heroin, my money. Poor guy. Yeah, he's just trading with himself. I don't know. I did feel like I was lacking the context of how much time has passed.
Yeah.
I think that's important context because it's, it's helping the story breathe and, in the sense that like as a reader, I at least for me personally, I like to know, like how long has this been going on for? Like you're telling me that Logan did all this in one night? Is this several days? Is this weeks, months? Like, what are we looking at here in terms of like a timeline? The way it reads is that it's happening quite quickly, so it's probably not months. But, from the events of issue 1 to now, where he was basically like, I'm going to hop on a plane tomorrow and see you later, to I am now stuck in Japan getting drunk with, Yukio going around and doing whatever. But almost basically being used as a killing tool to take out, the other crime lords, or at least one crime lord.
I think Wolverine is away from the X-Men for a very long time. At least a month, if not like 2 or 3 months. And I feel like he bums around with Yukio probably for like at least a week or 2. And then I feel like this dismantling, my kind of reading of it is, it's probably taking over the course of like 1 to 2 weeks where he's just like devoted to his task and working very methodically to, bring down everything that Shingen has built up.
Yeah, and that was kind of the read I was getting as well. To see Asano come forward and be like, "Hey, this guy's now like the crime lord. He controls everything. We need your help." Which also had me thinking, don't you have your own people to deal with this? Like, how is this Logan's problem? Just like 2 issues earlier, you were telling him to get on a plane and leave. And what was he intending to do at the hotel? Was he there to try to kill Logan?
I think he's there to get his help.
He's walking in,
but it is weird that
he enters with his gun drawn, right?
Well, from his perspective, like, Wolverine, like, he knows that, like, Wolverine kind of, like, disappeared that night. He's sleeping by the train tracks in actuality, but, like, he knows, like, something's up. So maybe he's, like, the Hand or the criminal underworld are after him. He pissed off Shingen. He's living that secret agent life. He's got to always be ready.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe I'm just reading too much into it.
Maybe he could have not entered with the gun and maybe not died, but, that was his choice.
Yeah, well, I'm currently looking at the panels of the weapon stash that Logan has accumulated, and him smoking a cigar while holding a crossbow.
It looks like he's out to hunt vampires.
Yeah, he does.
It's mostly like shurikens and throwing knives and weird, what would I call these? Like, what is that game where you bounce the ball and you pick up is it jacks?
Yes.
It's got like a bunch of like weird barb jacks, I guess.
I think those are just like different throwing stars.
Well, some of them just look real funky. Like, it would just be like something you throw on this floor and then people walk on them, get big ouchies.
Kind of like a caltrop.
There's some nunchucks, but the chains are pretty shit. So now, speaking of like, rushing through so that you can spend more time on the things that matter, those chains are pretty damn wonky.
I wonder what the rationale was to make this this loophole that we see 3 individual panels. Like, it was clearly drawn as one, and then they just boxed them afterwards. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird choice because, I
think it helps with the, like, to break up the wording and to make sure that you kind of stick to the right order.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Just gives that kind of a natural pause between I kept their weapons for myself, pause. I don't normally use hardware, blah, blah, blah. That's my only thought. I don't have super strong opinions either way.
No, I mean, it was just an observation because I was looking at it. Beyond that, I don't really care.
It is interesting.
Another, like, thing that I reflected on reading this, just because it's such a enclosed story, is how much time is spent reiterating information. And this is probably true, and most definitely is across like everything around this time. But
I found that weird as well.
Like, every issue of this, we're just regurgitating like basic information about Logan. Like, yeah, I have a healing factor, and my bones are made of adamantium, and I'm here because of Mariko, and
it's kind of copy pasted same lines too. And I get it for, like, anybody could pick up like an issue and jump in, but it feels a little weird when we're dealing with like a 4-issue miniseries.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, like, how many people are just like, I'm going to pick up issue 3?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, who's picking this up
read that and be
mid-read?
like, what the hell is going on in this story?
I mean, I guess like from there, I imagine if I'm an editor, like the feedback is probably like, well, we have to assume that people might forget. Right? Because this is being released in not the way that we're consuming it today. Right? Like, we read it back to back.
The average person is really stupid.
I'm not going to dispute that. I agree. So I'm sure that's the rationale. It's just let's spell it out for people. But when you really take how much time is spent reiterating that information, it's a lot of time spent on it.
Yeah, it does take up some space.
Space that could have been given to, letting that stalking and dismantling of the underground crime empire.
One thing that I'm glad that we did loop to is the whole Mariko having her inner conflict. I feel like that was something that we were missing out on, or like a missing piece prior to the last issue. Like in the first issue, I think we spend like the most time with her. We check in. She's like, leave. I've got to do this for my family. Issue number 2 is at like the theater. And it's mostly just like her reaction of like, good heavens, Wolverine is ferocious. But it's nice, once things start going kind of wild and like the crime empire is, probably very blatantly obvious at that point. And she's like, hey, this isn't right. Like, I want to, obey my family, but this dude kind of sucks. He did not come back the way I remembered him.
Yeah, and I think her choosing, and I touched on this earlier, right? Like that cultural norm that is, ingrained in Japanese culture here, right? Like this honor bound to her family, and she doesn't want to dishonor them in any kind of way. And it's not exclusive to Japan by any means, but to see this conflict within her, for this to not just be a situation where like, oh, she, Logan kills her father and, oh, that's it. Okay, I guess we're good now. I can walk away. I think this at least makes it feel more like it's a choice that she's making, not just Logan, right? Like she's now choosing him, choosing to bestow upon him this honor of this blade. And, I really appreciate like where things go a lot more, right? Like with Jason coming into the picture and just
it makes it very interesting, and it makes it way more not unsatisfying, but like, come on, we need to know like what happened. We need more information. Like, why is she still like, Wolverine, you suck. You're an animal. You're unworthy.
Yeah, this really fills in that blank, right?
Yeah.
Because like they talk about the blade that was like given to him, and he throws it or like gets rid of it eventually, and just I think like reading this makes me appreciate the underhandedness that Jason does by manipulating Mariko into getting like pity pooping all over Logan's happiness. And it really makes that feel more tragic. And so to see Logan just absolutely gutted and devastated coming out of that feels more impactful now in retrospect, having read this. And in hindsight,
he's been on a real roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Finding Mariko married to some dickhead, murdering her father, watching her husband die, he's really invested. And then it's like, we're not going to do this wedding.
Yeah, we just went through all of this. But nope, I changed my mind the day of our wedding. It's made me also think, like, shouldn't this influence that Jason had over her, shouldn't that be gone now?
That's what I'm saying. There's so much, like, we don't know what's happening. Like, we need more information.
Bring us back to Japan.
When did they pick up this story thread?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
So for me, very satisfying story, really tight, great art. I think it offers a lot of what makes Wolverine great, his brutality, his competence at this type of work, but also the conflict within himself, wanting to tone it down at times or find peace, be less full of rage. And I feel like there can be a lot of talk of like, hey, all Wolverine stories are the same, or just generally like a tiredness to the character at this point after he's been front and center for so long. But I mean, this really is kind of like the OG first Wolverine miniseries. You know, maybe all of his stories after this are the same. I can't really say. But I think, you know, they established something great here. 9 out of 10?
I think we can all agree Logan is really a standout character. And we've known that even before reading this. I think what they did here is really pull Logan into a more vulnerable light. And, you know, this happens both, I think, from an emotional perspective of Logan trying to adapt and accept this new reality that he finds himself in with the love of his life, to being backstabbed, to then finding Yukio and everything that's happening there. It's a lot of emotional baggage that he now has to carry with him through these issues. And I think going forward, you know, the events of these 4 issues are really going to, I think, help drive the character's personal growth going forward and how we see him interacting with the X-Men at large. And, you know, hopefully we're not waiting too long before we revisit this. It would be a real shame if we didn't. And ultimately, I feel like they really did a wonderful job bringing this brutality to Logan that we kind of flirt with in the X-Men books, but really get to have it stand out here with just a lot of competency from the creative team. So I think 9 out of 10 is where I would also be.
That does it for this episode of Uncanny Book Club. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you next episode where we'll discuss issues 176 to 178.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Uncanny Book Club. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share with a friend.